Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me, I have our CEO, Jim Boomer. Jim, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, we have a popular topic here, and that is about creating an inclusive firm. All right, this is something that I think every firm has been hearing about over the last year. But the conversation needs to continue, and we're going to continue that conversation today. And so, Jim, kind of a first question to get you started here is why is it important from a business perspective for firms to think about being inclusive?
Yeah, that's a great opening question here. And as you said in the opening, this whole topic and focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, but also belonging has really gained a lot of attention and momentum in business in the last couple of years. And there's important reasons for this. And the first, I think, is most important is it's the right thing to do. Second would be, in the talent war that we're all battling, we'd really be silly to not be opening up our talent pool of potential top performers to all kinds of groups. And third, and it's not third because it's any less important. From a business results perspective, it's critical is that there's research and direct links between being a more diverse organization and having diverse thinking and perspectives and experience and high performance. And then the last thing I'll say is just think about it. For many of us, we spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our family and friends throughout the week. And we all want to feel included, and we want to feel a sense of belonging where we're going to spend the majority of our time. And so to attract top talent, there is already, and there's a growing expectation that our organizations reflect society as a whole in a much better way. And this sends a signal outward to the market that we understand, respect, and are able to better serve diverse groups of people. So, we as organizations, we as a profession, we have to focus on this, and frankly, we have to do better.
That's great, Jim. And I love how you started with the first one. It's the right thing to do. And, if you need more reason beyond that, you just highlighted them all. It makes business sense as well. And so it's not something that's at odds between personal and business. It's something that actually makes a lot of sense for both. And so thank you for clarifying that. So what steps can firms take to create a more inclusive firm? This idea can sound very overbearing. It can sound huge. A lot of firms think about, well, in my geographic market, this is what things look like, or, things of that sort. What steps can firms take to actually move the needle in this area?
Well, there's a lot that can be done. But I'll try to simplify it into kind of a 4-step approach. And this is how we've addressed it at Boomer Consulting. Before I get into that 4-step approach, I do want to make the comment, it's our natural inclination and behavior to want to jump to action as quickly as possible. And for a lot of people, this is an area that they've got to do a lot of learning and education and analysis before they're ready for action. So that would be my first point. But we've kind of broken it down into first, and it follows that opening comment, which is first, we need to expand our own personal awareness and understanding of those things that we have limited exposure and knowledge about. So those things, that's a lot. That includes, groups of people that don't look, think, act like us. We're not around them. They're not in our normal everyday network. And so that could be people from another country, somebody of another race, another religion, another socioeconomic background, someone that has a different sexual orientation or gender identity. Um, you know, when it can be any of these things, but what we need to do from a personal perspective is consume information through reading, through watching videos, however you learn best. Um, but also beyond that, interact with people, that types of people that you've never interacted with. Have dialogue with them, learn about them, ask them questions. So I would say first step is start with yourself and your own journey. Um, the second is to really understand the barriers to progress in the diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging space, analyze them and develop strategies to overcome them. These first two steps are about reflection, learning, and understanding. And as I said at the start here, we naturally want to dive right in and start doing things. But without those important first two steps, we risk taking action that will have no impact, or even worse than that, an impact that's contrary to what we're intending. So it could have negative ramifications. So it's important that we really analyze and look at things from many different perspectives and understand and learn from those different perspectives. So third is still internal focus, but it's making a difference at your own firm and within your own organizations. What changes can you make in your recruiting, your hiring, your retention, but also your overall culture and social norms within your firm? What can you do to help your team accelerate their progress in the first two steps through training opportunities? I'll give you an example. At Boomer, we do quarterly DEI sharing sessions where we'll have a particular topic, or we'll all read a book and discuss that. Our last one was on the transgender community, the appropriate terminology, just gaining a better understanding, which for many of us, that was a topic that we were lacking that education and that exposure to, and then having dialogue about it. And as I said, and previously, if you can connect with someone in that community too, that will further your learning as well. So if you want to make an impact, you need to first start with yourself and your organization. And then only after those first three steps are done, are you ready to step outside your own organization and figure out actions that you can take that will make an impact with your clients, with your business partners, with your community. But really, that's how we've approached it. And I would recommend following that same kind of four-step methodology for your own firm.
That's great, Jim. And yeah, those first three steps, you learn so much in that. And so excellent advice. As you work with firms, Jim, and you kind of discuss with them this topic, or you hear this come up in a strategic planning session or a growth session or a strategy session, and this is a topic that's coming up in a lot of different contexts. For the firms that you have seen move the needle in this, and when I say move the needle, I mean they're following those first three steps and they're really dedicated to kind of seeing that through. What type of positive results have you seen them experience along the way? Or maybe you can just share a little bit about the positive results we've seen as we've kind of followed that process.
Yeah, I'll start with a point I made earlier, but the research has directly linked high performing and innovative organizations with greater diversity. And I think that's point number one, is that firms that have truly made this a strategic focus. And as you said, we work with a lot of firms. We're seeing this hit the strategic plan more and more frequently. And that is a good sign that we as a profession are starting to see that this is something that needs proactive focus, not just reaction when something happens. So, when we have many diverse perspectives working on a similar goal or challenge, the end product's going to naturally be stronger. From a growth perspective, there's a growing expectation in our society that we commit to DEI in terms of both words and actions. And so more and more clients and partners, both your current clients and partners and prospective, will begin inquiring about what your firm's stance, approach is. What are you doing around this? And if you don't have a strong, well thought out answer, they're going to move on and continue their search for another firm. So we're already seeing this in requests for proposal that we see from prospects. We're seeing it show up in agreements that we sign. And so it's an important area. Another point I'd make is just in market, like who can you sell your services to? And what's your market potential? And if your firm doesn't mirror society as a whole, as I've said previously, you're limiting that market potential. But when we do mirror society, we open up the floodgates to so many more potential consumers of our services and business partners that wouldn't have even thought of doing business with us if we didn't make it known what our commitment actions were in the area of DEI and belonging.
Yep. And you started to touch on another topic related to that, which I think is pretty obvious, and that is around, hey, this is not just an accounting profession topic here. This is something that is happening globally. It's this is a topic that's relevant to all industries, and as firms get more diverse in their service offerings and they're looking to attract and retain the best talent, I mean, this is really relevant to that. But Jim, as we kind of close out this episode, for our listeners, what's your advice on kind of next steps? If they could do one or two things, maybe it's just you highlighting the one or two steps to kind of start, or anything you would kind of give them to say, here's what I want you to do when you stop listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, get in motion. So it's a journey. It's not just check the box and I'm done in this area. So it starts with you. That would be my next step. Your own education and understanding about the issues, the obstacles, and the potential actions that you can take to bring about positive change. That all starts with you. So the first step I'd recommend is to identify a group of people that you've never really interacted with, and frankly, you don't know a lot about, you don't understand. And I would say find an opportunity to connect with somebody from that group. It could be, as I said before, another race, another religion, nationality, sexual orientation, gender identification. Now you can educate yourself, but also make that connection, ask questions, learn about them, and then move on to the next group. The more we can expand our horizons and the more we understand and know about different types of people, the less foreign it becomes, and the less foreign something is to us and unknown, the less scary it becomes. And we can all, come together better to create organizations that are much more powerful and more valuable to society, to our clients, and to our team.
Excellent closing statements, Jim. So thank you. Well, that brings us to our time for this episode. So Jim, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
Thanks for having me, John.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. So please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. And thank you for listening.